Welcome to Music City Memoirs. I'm your host, Dave Bechtel. Thanks for joining me as we explore the lives of the great people of Nashville, Tennessee that helped give this amazing city the nickname Music City, USA. Today, I am joined by the very lovely and talented Allie Farris. Welcome,
Thank you.
Allie.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad we could both fight the morning Nashville traffic and get here.
Well, barely.
So, I believe that you've been here in Nashville about 10 years or so?
I'm rounding out. I think next January would be 9, so I'm on the better part of the decade.
Okay, yeah.
I'd say.
And so the traffic, which is a normal topic of conversation
Yeah, it definitely
today.
wasn't 5 years ago. There was no traffic, in my opinion, about 5 years ago. I used to tour out of Nashville, and I'd be on the highway. It's just crazy. There's so many people that have moved to town. You can hardly get anywhere anymore.
Yeah. It's neat to meet new people and see folks pursuing their passions, their dreams, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure,
But
if you can ever get to their house.
yeah, I sure wish that they would do it remotely.
Right.
So yeah. So you moved to Nashville. You're not here from here originally.
Right.
Where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Dallas, Texas, North Dallas, Texas, specifically a place called Flower Mound, which nobody knows about, but they do know the city right next to it, which is Denton, Texas, and that's where UNT is, and that's what was my first college was there.
Cool. Yeah, so for those that are not familiar with Allie already, she is both a brilliant singer-songwriter and also a piano tuner by trade. And we'll kind of dig into some of how you approach your piano tuning in just a little bit. But let's go back to Texas real quick.
Because I was far enough out of Dallas proper, and when I say that, I mean like downtown, there wasn't a huge music or art scene in my small area. You either had to go to Denton, it was a college town. I was too young when I was a kid to pal around Denton until I got to about 18. And so I felt a little bit lost growing up in my area because there weren't a lot of artistic kids that I found. So it was a lot of self-exploration, writing by myself, playing by myself, and eventually just basically a ton of time spent on the piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get started playing the piano? Pretty young?
Yes. When I was 6, my parents put me into piano lessons to eventually improve my math scores. That was legit the reason why they put me into lessons, and obviously they did not see the fruits of that. I did learn from one woman in Dallas, a woman named Patsy Bellington. She taught me from about 8 to 18, pretty much, and then that was classically based, and kind of the buddings of, I started songwriting on my own when I was about 13, and I would bring things into her that would, I think, frankly, frustrate her, because it was like, why aren't you learning Bach? Why aren't you learning this Chopin piece that I want you to learn? Why are you playing Beatles tunes and why are you trying to learn these guitar chords on piano? And so out of that frustration, I picked up a second teacher in high school, which was an amazing woman named Julie Bonk. And she's a jazz pianist, one of the best you've ever seen. And she's a barefoot hippie lady. She's awesome. She has hair down to the floor. And I would spend most afternoons over at Julie's house. Interestingly enough, I know I'm rambling, so you always jump in.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, Julie actually taught somebody else about 10 years before me. The same way she would hang out at her house almost every day, let out her dog and stuff, and just kind of like use her house as a haven. That was Nora Jones.
Wow.
Yeah, Nora and I basically have the same hippie grandmother, or not grandmother. Sorry, Julie, godmother, and that's Julie Bonk.
Wow.
Jazz pianist. Well, she's got a huge heart and very nurturing to young talent, and that was the thing that I feel like searching for most of my childhood was somebody to kind of just say, yeah, it's okay. It's okay for you to be feeling so like emotionally unbalanced and crazy and creative and needing to funnel that through, because at that point I was writing music, and my parents were pretty supportive consistently. They just kind of, I don't have anybody really like me in my family creatively, and so that was kind of a medium that was on my own. And so when I found Julie, that was finally somebody was musical, and I could kind of speak the same language.
So you stayed in Texas until you were about 18 or so?
Yeah, that's correct, about 18.
Okay, and then moved straight here to Nashville, or was there a stop in between?
I had heard from Julie about this place called Berkeley in Boston. I got a job with Berkeley College of Music as one of their piano tuners, which was a fool's hope.
Okay.
That my boss actually at UNT said was wishful thinking, and I was like, I'll show you. So I got up there, and I marched straight into the piano tuner's office, and I just said, give me a job. And he said, show me how you tune, and so I did, and that was a boot camp because I had to tune just hallways of pianos.
Mostly upright practice?
Almost the exact same. Yeah, most of them were the exact same model. I think CP90, Yamaha CP90s.
Sure.
And it was whirlwind 6 months. And then at the end, I kind of looked forward at the next 6 months and at the student loans. And I decided to just bite the bullet. And I moved down here when I was 19. I got a job simultaneously as the worst waitress ever. I'm the worst waitress ever, full stop. And then as a piano tuner for Chef's Piano Showroom down in Franklin.
Sure.
I was in their what do they call it? Their warehouse with all the new and forever old pianos, trying to kind of resurrect them up to pitch. And so, just in this snow globe of piano tuning warehouse.
Yeah. So we've been talking a good bit about piano tuning, and so you do something that is somewhat unique. Can you describe to us a little bit about how you go about tuning a piano and what makes that different than most other folks?
Absolutely.
When you call a piano tuner up?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. I'll do my best. I tune by ear. Easy enough to say. Yeah, I tune pianos by ear. I have one tuning fork, which is 440, and it's right around the middle A on the piano. And how do I put this? Well, first of all, I learned how to do this from as an apprentice at UNT, my first college. And there was a man named Alejandro and Cyril. Cyril was a Dutchman, and Alejandro was, I think, from Colombia, and they were like the odd couple, and they just bickered all the time, and they both had wildly different philosophies for how to tune by ear, and so I really had to kind of find my own way with all of their input, which was like hardly anything. They didn't want to teach a girl, and so I had to kind of like make them. I showed up before school and just because they just thought I was going to lose interest. It's a hard job. It's very physically involved. They thought that they didn't think I had the strength for the job and stuff, which fine. I was a wiry 17, 18-year-old. But seeing that I was showing up and staying, locked in a room for 8 hours, they put me on this junk piano that still held tune, but it was in just this room where they just threw old instruments that were broken into the room, and so they used it as the piano tuning apprentice piano, and so they charged me with just sitting there in the room, and for the next year, I sat there playing, I hours a day, just hitting the same note over and over again until I could hear all of the overtones. First of all, I heard all of them at that point.
Okay.
And so that was just like a jungle. And then they would come in, and then they showed me how to make a temperament, which temperament is an octave in the middle of the piano that you use as kind of the guide map for the rest of the piano. And you do that yourself, whereas a machine depending on how specialized, how expensive the machine is, it can tell you what the temperament should be. For any particular model, you can get specific enough like to how old the piano is, even the condition of, but it's in the end, it's still a machine. And so myself, I would take this temperament, and every piano is different. The wood has moisture in it that's different from like a Bosendorfer of this year. Could have been kept in a completely different environment, and the soundboard might be slightly shaped differently. And so that affects, in my opinion, where you place the temperament.
I think for folks like myself and yourself that, we're in studios, kind of day in, day out.
Yeah.
It's like, we got to get the piano tuned, obviously.
Right.
But for someone that might not be living in the studio world, they might not understand. I mean, why is it important to have the piano tuned on a regular basis, or perhaps even every day?
Yeah.
If you're doing a session, because and I want you to explain, but so maybe some of the listeners can understand. When I book sessions, and I have to tell the client, okay, we have to have the piano tuned. Sometimes they tell me, well, why do we need to have the piano tuned?
Why do I want to pay that $100? Why would I want that piano tuned?
Yeah, isn't this a professional studio? Why wouldn't they be taking care of their instruments?
Yeah.
So can you kind of maybe shed some light on that?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I would say that obviously people that aren't piano players themselves and maybe hiring somebody to play the piano may not, themselves kind of register the importance of having a piano tuned, but in the end, it just comes down to the frequency. It comes down to the alignment of the frequency, and that's why what I do, I feel, makes such an impact. When you have a properly tuned piano, it resonates in a track. It resonates with you yourself. It's a cut above. Now, people do use out-of-tune pianos for a certain. That's why certain like studios, if they have the space for it, will have a honky-tonk piano,
Sure.
which is slightly or sometimes very out, and you have to determine the pitch center of that piano roughly, so that you have to pitch down the other instruments in order for the track to not sound weird.
But that's more of just an effect.
Yeah, it's more of like a texture.
Yeah.
Whereas having a piano being featured in a track, even just as a member of a 4-part ensemble, if you have notes that are ringing out, simply enough, if you hit a note that is out, it's sour. It's like a sour smell in the middle of your track.
Wow, what a gret description of that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
It's like stinky garbage. It's like you got this pristine trio there, and then you've got this piano that's trying its best to add everything, but it's like a bag of something smelly in the back of the room. I'm very critical when it comes to critical. If it can be in a positive light, but like I'm positively critical of music in general, and of the standards that you can hold yourself to when you're making art. And there comes a point where you can overdo it, but there are certain boxes that you can tick in order to put yourself at a level that's going to give you the best opportunity for magic. And having your piano tuned is one of those boxes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
What does a normal day look like for you for work?
A normal piano tuning appointment, I guess I would say, would be a lot of times I just go over to people's houses. The start of it is that I get a call, and I have my kind of normal questions that I answer. How old is the piano? Roughly how long has it been since it was tuned? Has it been moved recently? Things like that. What kind of piano is it? And when I get that information, sometimes people are reasonable and they let me give them a quote in person, which I appreciate. Sometimes I have to kind of roughly estimate a quote before I go over there. And it's always a terrible occurrence when I have to change that, which I'm hard on myself, but like, what are you gonna do? But I show up at the house and I take a look at the piano. I check the tune of the piano and roughly, if it is indeed what they said, and decide whether the piano needs to have the pitch moved and to what degree. And then that takes me about 2 hours, and I sit down and I do my thing. I take a little bit longer than most people do because I tune by ear, but also I'm a bit more, again, I'm a bit more particular with the sound of the piano. I don't like to approximate a temperament. I like to get the very best one I can. And the temperament changes per piano.
Yeah.
So.
And what kind of challenges do you typically see? I mean, if you're going into someone's house, you have kids running around, yelling, dogs, barking, people playing stereos next door, or something like that?
You're giving me flashbacks. Yes.
Okay.
My first introduction to that was when I went to Berkeley for the first time and they had me tuning the practice rooms. That is pretty much as bad as it could possibly get. For me, and so I consider that a lucky occurrence then, because I went through absolutely the worst thing that you can do as a piano tuner, which is having tremendously loud outside noise, polluting, you trying to tune by ear, because a lot of times the tuners, most any tuner that I've come across uses a machine of some kind, and I don't, and I ask politely that they try to keep as quiet as possible, because there's just absolutely no way that I can tune it properly and people have varying degrees of what quiet is. And after I've only had to ask twice, like probably once or so, but sometimes I just kind of have to suck it up and do the best I can, because I had a couple months ago, I had a tuning where I was about an hour and a half into it, so I was kind of nearing the end. But that's normally one of the hardest parts because my brain's a bit fatigued. And I am having to do what are called the unisons, which you take the outside strings and you marry them with the middle string sonically. So you tried to eliminate all beats possible with the string. And that note sounds very clear and just like straight as an arrow. So I'm about halfway done with the piano unisons, and she comes in and she starts making lunch in the kitchen directly adjacent to me.
Yeah, with the blender.
Pots and pans. She turns on the stove fan.
Yes. Which makes an actual tone.
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah.
It does make a tone. And it was, oh man, it just drove me nuts. And she was mad at me because I said, hey, I can't hear. And she said, I gotta make lunch. Like, why did you bring me over? Can't you wait like 30 more minutes?
So you talked about earlier when you were first learning how to tune, the folks that were teaching you were a little hesitant to teach you, primarily because you're a woman.
Yeah.
And do you find that to be a challenge in getting hired to do a job?
I do. I find that now, about 3 years into having my own, I have enough at my own business. I have enough clients that, respect what I do and know that I mean what I say and trust that I know what I'm doing. But I do have enough people that I work with to where they refer other people and they already come to me knowing that, I'm a good tuner. But when it was starting out, I had to do, the small business shuffle, which was cold calling people and advertising, and you would get calls like just condescending, like, because I'm young as well as being a woman, and it is a predominantly male run job, and because, a lot of times, like, I've restrung a Steinway before. It was back-breaking work. But, I've done things like that. I change strings all the time in Boston. That's not a part of my business now because I don't do repairs. I just focus on fine-tuning. But people have called me and asked me if I really know how to tune pianos. And if I'm really good, Like who, I don't want to play that card, but it's like, what about me is making you ask that? I believe it is because I have, a makeup on. I have a small frame and makeup on.
It's hard for me as a man to, I've not walked in those shoes before, so it's hard for me to understand it. And I'm married and I have 2 young daughters, and so it's hard for me to kind of understand, why someone would feel that a female somehow would be incapable of doing anything.
Yeah.
And specifically something when it comes to a very detail-oriented thing, which women generally are better at than men.
Maybe so. I think it all comes down to where your strengths lie, and your strengths can lie in one profession, whatever gender you are, whatever your personality is, whatever it just depends on where your passion lies and where your interests are and what you choose to pursue and what you choose to excel at, and that is regardless of what you look like or your gender.
Yeah.
So,
is there a piano player out there who I would love to tune their piano?
Oh, that's an awesome question. It's like, who do you want to meet? Because I've been really fortunate to get to meet.
It is a little bit about who would you like to meet, but I think in some ways it's a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah,
it's like who would you want to partner with, or who would you like to enable?
Yeah, probably Rufus Wainwright.
Okay.
I feel like he uses full. He plays really hard though, so it would be a heck of a job.
So you'd be meeting him once a week.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I would want to tune for him once just to hear the show that he played on that piano, because it would be pretty. I mean, I sound very arrogant, but the piano would sound great. That's fine. That's
some good confidence.
Well, just because I've been in the trenches, like I fight for my pianos, and I've seen shows of his, and he's so theatrical in his arrangements and so orchestral with what he does, that I feel like it would be such a great opportunity to hear whatever piano I would get to tune for him. Be awesome.
So, not everyone has a Bosendorfer in their living room, whatever.
I wish I had one.
There are a lot of upright spinets and that sort of thing in
Right.
people's houses all throughout the world. What is, as a piano tuner and someone that works, and sees all sorts of different pianos, what's one thing you wish that piano owners would know about their instrument that would either make your job easier, better, or make that instrument?
Humidity is a silent killer.
Okay.
That's what I would say. Humidity is the silent killer. Keep your piano away from humidity, away from vents, away from windows, away from anything that, humans can feel humidity if you want to use that part of your brain and just realize, right now we're actually in a pretty humid room. And that's because of just the incessant humidity that we're experiencing here in Nashville. So it's kind of unavoidable, but a lot of times people just are so confused by why the piano, goes out of tune so badly. And but we have hardly played it, and you must have done a bad job. But no, it's when there's moisture in the air, that soundboard fills up like a sponge. And it brings the strings up in tension, therefore it brings the pitch up. And then when that humidity goes away, that soundboard collapses and normally goes under pitch. And so that's what happens on a range of scales throughout the year. We get the poles in summer and in winter, where it's humid and crazy in the summer, and it is dry as a bone in the winter. And dry as a bone is when the opposite happens, where the moisture comes out of the piano and there's nothing really tacky for the pins to hold onto in the wood, and so it's very hard for you to be able to, like, depending on the piano again, to make them stay. And it's the same thing with the soup that is summer, whereas it's hard to get those pins to stay when you're trying to tune with a sponge, you know? So humidity.
Humidity. That's the
It's a long,
silent killer.
winded answer, yes.
Okay, great. So wrapping up, this podcast, this video series is really kind of exploring the people in Nashville that are connected through the music, the world of music. What would be kind of your hope for Nashville moving forward?
My hope for Nashville moving forward. Do you mean people-wise, music-wise?
Could be anything. Could be traffic.
Yeah, less traffic,
Less traffic.
I guess. I mean, less traffic, for sure. I feel like musically, I feel like it could be a lot more open to different kinds of music.
Okay.
I feel like we're very one-dimensional right now with our popular music coming out of Nashville. It's holding on to that country and all its affiliates. I feel like mainstream-wise we could have, and it's beginning. Like Lightning 100 has done an amazing job in the last couple years, really bringing up these rock bands and these alternative sounding bands. I feel like that we could be as diverse as New York, you know, with our sounds. But I feel like the money needs to come to that as well. I think all of the money is being funneled into the CMA and all the publishing companies that is predominantly going towards country music. And that's also bringing out this culture of songwriters like myself. And I have a band with this guy named Cheyenne, and we call it FM, Farris and Memoirs, that's his last name, so FM. And we do like 70s inspired, you know, classic rock kind of sounding stuff that you know is mixed with modern sounds and things like that. And I know someone else that does like house music and you know, alternative, like is even like spoken word stuff like that. You know, I just feel like that could come to prominence so much more, and it would the city would be bettered for it. So that's my opinion.
So more diverse music and keep your pianos away from humidity.
That's correct.
All right.
You got the point.
This is good stuff. Well,
Yeah.
Allie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really,
And
really excited.
look forward to hearing many perfectly pitched pianos all around Nashville.
You bet. If I have anything to say about it, you will.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.